Listen to this. Listen to this. There we go. Additional coloring books. Additional coloring books. Oh, you'll have fun. 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 Creatures in this picture. These are pelicasaurs, called cassettes. They roam the swampy forest of the area we now call North America. They slither and crawl, just like many large-scale blizzards of today, munching on soft plants and always trying to keep from being someone else's dinner. Look at those razor-sharp teeth. The most common carnivore of the lowlands during Permian time. desert 70 million years ago. Just look at the large, odd-shaped heads on those animals. They're called horned dinosaurs. These protoceratops are unusual planets because they laid eggs, and lots of them, too. You know what else is odd about them? They're called horned dinosaurs.
It's represented by the last letter of the alphabet, Z. Zero has a Z in it. There you have the 10 primary consonant sounds of our English alphabet. We don't use vowels as substitutes for numbers. Now you'll be able to make up words more easily to remember numbers that are important to you. For example, let's assume my telephone number is 432.
But with flesh eaters around, it probably wanted to hide in its shell. It couldn't though, because strong bones and spines covered its head and legs and helped keep away hungry attackers.
To make words, I immediately think of the two words Roman numeral. It's almost impossible to forget words, and it's simple to drop out the vowels and translate the letters into the numbers 432, 2345. All memorizing is easier if you practice for a half hour or so and then forget it for a spell. Later you can come back for a half hour more, followed by another break. Tests have proved that people learn better and faster with this method rather than trying to do the job in one sitting. Try practicing the number alphabet system right now.
And up to 50 feet in length. Huge head to the end of its heavy tail.
7 is K, 8 is F, 9 is P, 0 is Z. Learn to know the pairs as well as your name or a familiar prayer. Turn off the cassette player and practice them backward, forward, and inside out. Only when you can recall them instantly can they help you whenever remembering.
Through the air, and used its pointed beak, fish and insects. But even though its wings were huge, the pterosaur couldn't flap them. It had to rely on gusts of wind to fly. If the wind died down, it was forced to land.
Remember what I said earlier. Usually it's easier to recall anything that's absurd or ridiculous. I use this phrase to remember this make-believe Social Security number. A light run to a UN TV. 4211-5331-4913. Break it up this way. 4 plus 6. 4 1. 153.
Yet even though it weighed as much as 4 tons, the Lithosaurus moved slowly, making it easy prey for any large flesh eater.
What words did you come up with for it?
The wide, toothless beak was another such great find. Its name, Montessor, after the area in Canada, Edmond, where its fossils were found. This beak probably had red feet, which it would use for quick getaway in the water. Made to be a good swinger with it.
For the 4 groups of numbers, I use this crazy sentence. Run it to a lame mate or Pete Moe. Drop the vowels and you have the letters standing for the digits in our credit card number. I admit it's a crazy combination of words, but it certainly is much easier and much more trustworthy than trying to recall numbers alone. There's more to the alphabet number system, of course. It takes a good deal of work and a lot of practice to master it, but it's worth it. I simply want you to be aware that it's not too difficult to add the remaining consonant sounds that will help you in remembering numbers. There are just a few additions, all listed in the guide to the 10 basic consonant sounds I've already taught you. For 1, T. Add also D and TH. For 6J, add the sounds CH, SH, soft G, and TCH, and DG. For 7K, add NG, Q, hard C, and hard G. For 8F, add the sounds V, and PH. For 9P, add B. And for 0, V, add N. Is in the Z sound, which is 0, and B is coupled with P, which is number 9. You've probably noticed that H, W, and Y are not used. Since they're half vowels, they have no correlating numbers. X is not included because it's represented by the KF sound as in mix. M is 3, and X as KS would be 7 for K, and 0 for S. Therefore, the word mix translates into the numbers 370. Always consider the phonetic sound of X, and you will know how to represent it. Illustration. This number, 950111357450294. Can you make up a sentence or series of words to recall this number? Here's the sentence I use. Please date small girls in pairs.
And you have a piece that asks them, who would your kids say their heroes are? You be a 13 to 15-year-old. Who are your heroes? Yeah, it's Beavis and his brother. And sort of this, that's where I have to really get into. Part of the research, if we're going to go and talk about that, is you got to go hang out with some of these kids, don't you? I mean, you got to know about, and I'm a little behind on like smashed pumpkins and 9 Inch Nails and whatever, Charles. And, this new guy, man. I think it's a guy. Marilyn Manson, man, that's a hoot. So if you're going to joining, right?
On his blind spot. They both made a turn and got into the street, and then somewhere around a car length or two into the street, the moped hit right around the driver door, right where the driver door and the bed used to pick up.
For Christopher Christ minister and some young people, and they had like a
motorcycle go down. And then you saw the bike actually probably got ran over by the back wheels of the truck. And then the truck continued on maybe another length or two, realizing that he had eaten contact with the moped on his left. It was such a quick thing. And we're talking maybe 30, 40 feet from the edge of the street that a bullet occurred.
And to do a good study of human critters, just go to the mall and hang out and look. So don't you know that around every mall, there's the bad boys? There's a gathering place for the bad boys. At every high school, there's a gathering place for the bad boys, and some of you used to be there, right? So do you have enough courage before you go and start talking about parenting to go and talk to some of those kids? But they're going to think you're a little weird. Attitude, value, emotion.
I think both drivers were not aware of each other. The moped made that shortcut around the off time. The pickup truck just went ahead and made a regular turn. There were 3 oncoming cars that passed very quickly in succession before those two turned in as I was approaching to be the third car to turn into that street. And as soon as those cars turned, that's when the moped sort of rounded off the turn. And then the pickup turned in. So again, I don't think either party was aware of each other, and that's how the accident occurred. Let me see if I can do some clarifications and chop this down in sections. As you are approaching your left-hand turn into Curtis Avenue, pickup truck and the moped began to make their turn. Correct.
That will prove. What I put in the form at the bottom is a way to help design learning activities, objectives, outcomes that you can assess under knowledge-based learning, skill-based learning, and attitude-based learning. So there are the notion of observable behavior. And I teach you to do some things that you should know that you could do that you couldn't do, that you weren't able to do previously.
I'm not even 100% sure. I can't say the way. actually stopped. He just kind of rolled into the intersection, saw the no oncoming traffic was coming, didn't realize what the truck was doing or wasn't paying attention, and he rounded off his turn. Did you talk to the motorcycle, moped?
Yeah, thank God all of those competitive markets, because particularly if you're in a community that is trying to compete for all those entertainment dollars. They got a team of every stripe. But what I want to take seriously is how much time it's going to cost them, how much money it's going to cost them, and I don't want to go too long. Number two, that it provides practical how-to specific information rather than just being all theoretical and conceptual. You're probably wondering, when are we going to get to that stuff? I spoke recently at a thing called Saving the American Family, and you could spend, they give you like an hour and a half to do your lecture, and you could spend an hour and a half telling these people how bad it is. Now, they just flew and spent $1,000 to get here, and you've told them something they knew, and they didn't even need to leave home. So they can go, yes, I agree. But then on the other hand, they say, well, I can't give them something that will solve all their problems. Yeah, but you can get them more than just tell them what the problem is. Number three, minimizing the time required to obtain the information. The seminar and workshop attendees generally want to acquire a thorough understanding of the subject in a short period of intensive learning. And a good program enables participants to get all the necessary information in the shortest possible time. That's probably what you've been experiencing now or through this conference is, well, I didn't know anything about that. I hope that I could leave that 2-hour workshop and know everything about that particular disorder. What has frightened me being a trainer of MFTs is that we bring our students to national conference. They go back home and for about 3 weeks, all of their clients have whatever, seminar they went to. They can find them, even if the people don't have them. They will teach them how to have that disorder so they can cure them. But I think these programs...
And I was asking him questions, and he seemed coherent, but about every 6th or 7th question, what's your name, where you're from, what do you think of the career journal, just general silly questions, he would go... And where he got his little head, because I was listening to my one, and he said, I got it in Baghdad. And that, register, obviously. I knew at that point, I knew at that point he was coming in and out of... We all got them know you have to lay flat, lay still. He said, my back's hurting. We said, well, sir, you might have a back hurting, lay still. He said, no, the ground is cold. I'm freezing. I'm sure, but let me up. We all got to, because he was laughing at that point, and we all got to chuckle with him, and then kind of zone back out again and said some silly, I forgot what he said. You could tell he was coming in and out of, coherent. He wasn't really that coherent. Okay. And did he tell you where he was coming from?
If what I want to do is cover marital enrichment, and I know that these folks would benefit from the skills that would come from a communication-based program that's set up on a 6 to 8 hour thing, I've got to figure out a way to help them get somebody else in, or somebody from in that organization, or that their next one has to be
114. Break the list into smaller groups. I like to do it in 2. For 48, the first 2 numbers, we can substitute roof. For 91, how about the word pot? For 14, I have the word tree. For 74, car. For 32, we can use the word man. So we have roof, pot, tree, car, and man. Notice that it's always necessary to use concrete words if we're going to be successful at getting our pictures. Anyway, here you go. Picture the roof of a house with a pot on top of it, a really huge pot. Growing out of the pot is a gigantic tree as high as the Empire State Building. Hanging from the limbs of the giant tree are red cars looking like drooping red.
one, always like that, but two, they have a tendency to invite you back. Some of us have a notion, well, I can go everywhere once, and that's pretty well a good career. Being invited back in my ego structure says they kind of like what I did. Now, I know that I'm not going to go back every year, but it might be every 2 years or every 3 years. If you had enough of those, you wouldn't have to worry about adding some things, and then you can build on your own work. But I want to be an ambassador for stronger families, stronger marriages, good parent-child sorts of deals. And I would like, maybe you've gone to places where you've had to clean up some messes from people that have been there before. You've had to do a little repair work. So what in my mind, I'm wanting to work this notion in number 2 here, productivity, capability, and expertise. Let's go to the done for other thing else I would say about 3 is I think that you need to have what I've learned from doing this kind of workshop. Have you been to those where they've got wonderful PowerPoints overhead slides and all that, and all you do is write like mad, and you're thinking like, no, they have copy machines, why couldn't you give it to them? I think every adult.
In this case, 21,000 fingerprints. That's why we had the hickory nuts falling into your hands. Then, when you want to cite a figure, you can quickly convert the words back to numbers. For remembering dates, it's sometimes easier to associate an anniversary date in your life with a historical date. For example, Charles Lindbergh led a dark solo airplane flight across the Atlantic in 1927. That's the year I was born, so it's easy for me to remember. But by using the number alphabet, 1927 becomes the consonant T-T-M-K. We could use the 2 words top and next as the guided method. Picture it flying over numbers.
Participants should be able to acquire more information after the program through their own research with the help of starting points provided in the second within the
translate this into the 2 words fine aim and add that to top Nike to recall my birth date, August 23rd, 1927. A simple technique that sometimes works with telephone numbers is checking to see if you can make up a single word or 2 words by looking at the telephone dial where the numbers and letters are together. What can you spell with the number? If you can get a sensible word out of it, you'll be assured about it. If you dial in Chicago word, you get the in Houston, if you dial
anytime, and I don't know what it makes it happen, but when I'll put something on there I haven't read, you guessed it. That's the one somebody will ask you about. So, I'm just a slow learner. And if you make it up, somebody's read it. And, then they'll nail you. Number 6, entertaining as well as informs and educates. A lively, entertaining presentation with humor judiciously used in the context of the topic being discussed. One of the things that I try to warn students about when they come to some of our conferences is there'll be a wonderful, how can I put this? There'll be a wonderful author, but keep them away from a podium. I mean, does that ring a bell for anybody that knows about that? It's
For poetry and textbook data, the rote system of memory is still popular, although it can be difficult. Always remember the on-off rule of memorization. Study a while, leave it alone a while. You learn more, you learn faster by working on materials in half-hour or 1-hour sessions. Poetry that you don't need to recall word for word can be easily paraphrased by following the key word technique. Take, for instance, the poem by Joyce Kilmer that begins, "I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree." There are two I's in the couplet, plus the two pairs of words think and see and poem and tree. You can picture a brain and two eyes, and the eyes can remind you of the letter I and the word see. The syllable po in poem stands for a poet, and a tree is easy to picture. So the picture of a poet looking at a brain with two eyes on the branch of a tree would be fine clues for me. Then, if I like, I could use the stacking method to link pictures of key words from successive couplets to recall the entire poem. The surprise is that you can usually remember the poem word for word in this way much faster and much more securely than by rote memorization. People of all ages are attending school of some kind these days. There's a boom in adult education. Evening and even weekend classes attract young and old alike. Of course, most students must take tests on what they study in textbooks and in the classroom. So it becomes necessary to learn and remember facts, figures, dates, chronology, and foreign languages, vocabulary, and grammar. That's why we've included the category textbook data in this series. Most individuals in school, whether at lower or higher levels, have never been exposed to anywhere near as many memory aids as we've heard our news suggest. Most have never been taught or read anything at all about how to remember or how to improve their memory. The Alabama Williams have stuck to the only alternative, learning by rote, by repetition, by memorization. And that's the arduous, laborious method of learning. Time and practice produce results, but there are techniques that will speed up the process and make it more effective. The use of acronyms is one of these. Earlier, we explained how material can be mapping up the words from the first letters of those items you want to recall. You probably learned the names of the 5 Great Lakes that way. The single word homes represents the first letter of each of the lakes. H for Huron, O for Ontario, M for Michigan, E for Erie, and S for Superior. The acronym is an excellent way to retain the facts and figures that are required to pass tests in school. It works well also in recalling information needed in business or even socially. In Minnesota, my home state, I used an acronym that made it a snap to remember the nicknames of the athletic teams in the Big Ten Conference of the Midwest. I still recall it 30 years later without ever having written it down. It's this sentence: big gophers can be supreme by hitting in a hard way. The first letter of each word in that sentence is the first letter of the name of a Big Ten team. The first B stands for Badgers of Wisconsin. The G for the Minnesota Gophers. The C for the Cats, the Wildcats of Northwestern. The second B for the Buckeyes of Ohio State. The S for the Spartans of Michigan State. The third B for the Boilermakers of Purdue. The first H for the Hoosiers of Indiana. The I for the Illini of Illinois. The second H for the Hawkeyes of Iowa. And the W for the Wolverines of Michigan. This one sentence has settled more arguments than you believe. In school, acronyms can help you whether you're a student or a teacher. Half of my time is spent coaching. I once had a student in New York City give a talk made up of all the acronyms I used during the semester in a communication arts course. There was the 5B formula, be brief, baby, be brief. The 5P formula, proper preparation prevents poor performing, and many more. Then there are foreign languages. Because my wife is Spanish-American, I had to learn Spanish to converse with her in her native tongue. And I found that rhyming the English meaning with Spanish words made it possible to learn much more in a short time. Here's a sample of one of the famous ways to learn words in Spanish. Pollito chicken, gallina hen, lápiz pencil, pluma pen, techo ceiling, piso floor, ventana window, puerta door. In any case, if you've listened to this series of cassettes from the beginning, you already know the best ways to remember textbook material. For instance, you can use your number alphabet for all dates, statistics, facts.
So I'm trying to suggest that there's a notion, particularly for workshops. Maybe you think back to teaching situations that you've been or people that you really enjoyed, but that you also learned something. And I think that's a fine line to walk. Humor is two-sided. It can be difficult. It can not work. And, in fact, can turn some folks off. There's kind of different flavors of stuff. I would say don't.
This takes a few readings at least, but the time spent will pay off richly. Of course, marking the key lines, numbers, or ideas in the book with a light color crayon helps to highlight the essentials to be mastered. History textbooks include the 13 colonies and loads of other data. You've already religious codes, the Ten Commandments. Both of these rules, laws, and principles. If you must memorize material, remember that the true art of memory lies in the art of paying attention. Analyze the material thoroughly. Think about the meaning of the words. 1 hour of intense concentration will accomplish more than years of dreaming. But put short or even long breaks every hour or so. Try to find associations for the new ideas you're learning. Pick out the key words around the list and mentally outline them. Here are some rules for memorizing. Memorize out loud. Read the entire work. Read it again. Think of the meaning. Read it again and group the thoughts in your own words. Read it again and tell the thoughts in the author's words. Work when you're at your best and most alert.